As the regular season gets closer and closer, we begin to find a little bit of clarity as far as who's going to be starting on this defense and who the key players are going to be. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. The next video will be all about the offense, but for now, we're going to talk about the defense. But before we get started, if you guys like Michigan content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to continue doing this over here on the channel, and if you guys support it, then we'll continue to do it. I want to start off by talking about the secondary and who I think is going to be the captain of this defense, and that is safety Rod Moore. Coming back from his ACL injury that later turned into a meniscus injury, he has been rehabbing. There's been some complications along the way, but overall, I think that Rod Moore should be healthy for the start of the regular season. Worst case scenario, he's healthy around week 3 or week 4. And then there's a couple other safeties to talk about, one of which being TJ Metcalf, the transfer from Arkansas, who had a really solid season last year with the Razorbacks. And then Brandon Hillman as well, who had a really strong end to the season last year, especially in that game against Alabama. He's a hard hitter. He's somebody that is a ton of fun to watch. As far as the corners go, Jair Hill is the face of that group. He has a lot of praise heading into this season, a lot of expectations by the people within the University of Michigan. And then there's people on the outside as well who have a lot of expectations for Jair Hill to make that next step in his playing career. The other corners to talk about is Zeke Berry, who played in the nickel a lot last year. We really don't know if he's going to play on the boundary opposite of Hill yet, or will he play in the nickel. I think TJ Metcalf has a spot there to play as well if they decide to push Berry out to the boundary. But he is back, along with a transfer and Caleb Anderson coming over from Louisiana Lafayette, who had a pretty solid season last year. Not a huge contributor, but I think Michigan has a lot of expectations out of Caleb Anderson. And then the last guy I want to talk about is true freshman Shamari Earls. I think that he is somebody that Michigan is extremely excited about. He's been blessed to wear the number 2 number from Charles Woodson himself. I think that he could be an instant impact player out there on the field early. Kind of gives me some Will Johnson vibes. We saw Will Johnson on the field early and often in his career. We could potentially see the same thing out of true freshman Shamari Earls. Next, we'll talk about the linebackers, and I think this is the strongest position group on this team as far as the starters go, with senior Ernest Hausman and senior Jayshawn Barham. I am extremely excited to watch these guys in the middle again. They were really, really good last year. They got better as the season went on. Of course, Ernest Hausman has been somebody that has turned into an elite level talent there at middle linebacker. Jayshawn Barham, he was a transfer from Maryland last year that we were all excited about. Kind of had a slow start, but I think overall he did make strides and did improve last season. Also, with the potential to see Jayshawn Barham rush off the edge is something that I'm extremely excited about. And then a couple other linebackers that I'm excited about is Jimmy Rolder, the senior. I mentioned him in the video where I talked about 5 key players for this upcoming season. And I mentioned Jimmy Rolder as an honorable mention, and that's because if you allow him to get on the field and then Jayshawn Barham have the opportunity to rush the passer, there you go. You also have transfer Troy Bowles from Georgia coming over. He's a Georgia guy, so you know he's probably really, really solid. I'm excited to see if he can get into the rotation of linebackers this season. But overall, like I said, I think this is the strongest position group on this entire defense. But the defensive line got really strong over this offseason as well. Rayshawn Benny's the guy in the middle that everybody's excited about. I was corrected in the previous video. He is not going to be wearing number 55. He will be wearing his number 26. He is going to be the face of that defensive line, but you do bring in 2 transfers in Trey Williams and Damon Payne. Damon Payne at one point was a highly regarded recruit coming out of high school, committed to Alabama, didn't really find his footing there with Alabama, and decided to transfer to Michigan, where I think he's going to have a huge season. Alongside Trey Williams, a transfer from Clemson, who had 2 sacks last season. Again, really never found his footing with the Clemson Tigers. Comes over to Michigan now, and I think he's due for a huge season. Behind those guys, you do have guys like Trey Pierce and maybe even true freshman Travis Moten as well. And then you also have Enau Etta in the middle as well, backing up Rayshawn Benny. And then our edge rushers are guys that I'm extremely excited to watch this season. That's Derek Moore, who I think could potentially be a first-round draft pick, maybe a top 10 draft pick. He's got the size. If he can get faster, stronger, quicker off the line of scrimmage, He's going to be somebody to fear this season. And then opposite of him is TJ Guy, who looked really good down the stretch last season. When Josiah Stewart decided to opt out of the ReliaQuest Bowl, TJ Guy filled in nicely in that role. And I think Derek Moore and TJ Guy are going to be a dynamic duo off the edge. You also have Cameron Brandt and Dominic Nichols coming off the edge as well. And I think that they played really well in that game against Alabama last season. I think overall this was a defense that was really, really solid last season. Of course, Wink Martindale, not used to the college level per se, struggled a little bit early on in the season, but when he found his footing, learned the college game a little bit, Wink Martindale had himself a dominant defense those last couple of weeks. If you want to watch what you think Michigan is going to look like defensively this season, put on that ReliaQuest Bowl where they played an Alabama team that didn't have anybody sitting out, and they dominated them from start to finish. I'm excited about this defense. I think they have high expectations in my book. And I think that if they can live up to those expectations, you're talking about a top 5 defense in college football. Let me know if I'm forgetting about some players or there's going to be other players that will contribute. And let me know what you guys think about this defense heading into this season. And I will see you guys in the next video, which we'll be talking about the offense. Have a good day, everybody. See ya.